What if I told you that words, when chosen with intention and spoken with grounded energy, could shift the entire course of how a woman sees you? Not because you said something clever, not because you flattered her like every other man does, but because in that moment, your words reached her, not her ego, not her appearance, but that quiet, unseen place inside her that longs to be noticed for who she truly is. Most men talk to be heard. Few speak to be remembered. You see, we live in a world where noise is constant, attention is currency, and surface-level charm is cheap. Men chase approval, try too hard to impress, and drown in words that mean nothing. They throw compliments like darts in the dark, hoping something sticks. But what if you didn't have to chase? What if your presence alone made her lean in, and your words, few and intentional, made her remember you long after the moment passed? Because here's the truth no one's saying. Real attraction doesn't come from trying. It comes from being grounded, being selective, being aware of what you're saying and why you're saying it. You don't need scripts. You need standards. You don't need lines. You need language with meaning. In this video, we're not talking about tricks, gimmicks, or cheesy pickup phrases. That's not what this is about. This is about emotional gravity. This is about speaking with the kind of quiet confidence that makes a woman feel something she didn't expect. Seen, not sized up. It's about using words like tools, not weapons. Words that don't just flatter, but reflect. Words that don't chase, but challenge. Words that make her feel like she just discovered something rare in a man who doesn't speak often. But when he does, it matters. So before we dive into the phrases themselves, understand this. Power doesn't come from speaking more. It comes from saying the right thing at the right time with the right energy. And once you learn how to do that, once you understand how emotionally magnetic a calm, grounded man can be, everything changes. You stop auditioning. You stop proving. You start attracting without saying much at all. Now let's talk about the words that make her lean in, even before she understands why. Now that you understand the quiet power your words can hold, let's take a deeper look at why most men fail and what emotionally intelligent men do differently. There's something most men never learn because no one ever teaches it. They grow up thinking that women are impressed by grand gestures, flashy confidence, or surface compliments. They believe that saying you're beautiful or you look amazing tonight is enough to stir something real. But it isn't, because those words, however well-intentioned, are recycled, predictable, empty, and a woman with any depth can feel that instantly. But here's where it gets interesting. Language, when used with clarity, with timing, and with stillness, can bypass all that noise and reach something much deeper. I'm not talking about clever phrases or psychological tricks. I'm talking about a language that taps into the core connection, a language most men never speak. Not because they're not smart enough, but because they're too busy trying to impress instead of understanding. Emotional language is not about being emotional. It's about being emotionally aware. It's a quiet power behind a sentence that says, I see you, not just your body, but your essence. And when you learn to speak like that, not only do you stand out, you become unforgettable. Let me put it this way. Most men are broadcasters. They talk loud. They try hard. They take up space. But the men women remember are the ones who notice small things and speak with intention. They're not reactive. They're not noisy. They speak less, but what they say lands. And it's not the volume of their words that creates attraction. It's the vibration behind them. Think about it. When was the last time someone looked at her and noticed something no one else saw? Not her dress, not her figure, but her timing, her humor, her boldness, or even her restraint. That's where emotional language lives. And the moment you speak from that place, with presence, with restraint, with genuine energy, you change the dynamic instantly. And here's the kicker. Emotional language isn't flashy. It's not loud. It's not about trying to win her over. It's about seeing clearly and saying just enough. Because when you leave space in your words, her mind fills it. She wonders what you meant. She replays it. She feels it. That's the power of emotional magnetism. You don't push. You pull silently. So understand this. If you want to be the kind of man whose words echo, whose presence lingers, you have to stop speaking for approval and start speaking from truth. You have to stop performing and start observing. Because women don't crave perfection. They crave depth. They crave men who are rooted in themselves, who don't flinch under pressure, and who speak with calm, clear energy. And when you do that, when your words come from clarity, not craving, you don't need to impress her. She'll feel your value. She'll remember the way you made her feel, not with flattery, but with focus. Now, let's explore the first phrase that holds that power. A sentence so subtle, so understated, and so disarming that when said right, it makes her stop, think, and lean in before she even knows why. And once you master the art of emotional language, you unlock the ability to say less, but mean more. So let's look at the exact phrases that carry that magnetic pull when spoken with presence. Now that we've laid the foundation, let's move into the language itself. Not all words carry weight. Some vanish as soon as they're spoken, but there are certain phrases, crafted from clarity, not charm, that cut through the noise and stir something deeper. When delivered with calm confidence, these phrases don't chase approval, they command attention. Let's start with the first one. You have a unique way about you. I like that. It sounds simple, almost too simple, but it's one of the most psychologically potent phrases a man can say, if he says it right. See, most men compliment a woman's looks. You're beautiful. You're stunning. She's heard it 1,000 times. And while it may be nice, it doesn't create an emotional ripple. It doesn't spark anything lasting. But when you say, you have a unique way about you, you're not complimenting her appearance. You're noticing her essence. You're recognizing something she may not even fully see in herself. Maybe it's the way she tells a story. Maybe it's the timing in her humor. Maybe it's the quiet confidence in how she carries herself. When you notice that and say it like you mean it, her world slows down. You've stepped into the rare category of men who see more than what's obvious. Let's move to the second phrase. I like women who know what they want. This isn't just a compliment, it's a filter. It subtly flips the script. Because most guys enter a conversation subconsciously seeking approval. They nod too quickly. They agree too easily. They try to impress. But when you calmly say, I like women who know what they want, you're not asking for anything, you're setting a standard. You're no longer the one being evaluated. You're doing the evaluating. That energy shift is powerful. Suddenly, she's wondering if she fits your frame. Is she decisive enough? Does she carry herself with clarity? You've invited her to step up, not by pressure, but by presence. You've stopped chasing. Now she's invested. And the third phrase, that's what I like most about you. Here's where depth hits hardest. This line isn't meant to be thrown out casually. It's used when you've genuinely observed something that moved you. Maybe she lights up when talking about a dream she's chasing. Maybe she helps someone quietly, without looking for credit. When you pause and say, that's what I like most about you, you're doing something most men never do. You're reflecting back value, not flattery. It's the emotional version of holding up a mirror and saying, I see the best in you. That's powerful. That's unforgettable. Because in a world that objectifies and generalizes, the man who specifies, who sees, who says, and who stays grounded becomes the one she doesn't forget. These three phrases aren't meant to be memorized and repeated like a script. They're meant to become extensions of who you are, a man who speaks with awareness, who sees beyond the obvious, and who carries himself with a kind of emotional intelligence that leaves a lasting impression. Now, what happens when you want to raise attention? To inject playful friction and emotional intrigue without trying too hard? In the next section, we'll explore two bold phrases that flip the dynamic completely and make her lean in, not because you said something loud, but because you said something she didn't expect. But powerful words alone aren't enough. What truly sets a man apart is the energy behind those words. The emotional frame that flips the dynamic without force. There's a moment in every interaction when the energy shifts, when the question quietly flips from, is she into me, to, is she even ready for a man like me? Most men never reach that moment. They stay stuck in performance mode, chasing laughs, nodding too much, constantly seeking approval, without realizing that their energy is doing all the wrong talking. You can feel it when a man gives his power away with every compliment, every fast agreement, every overexplained sentence. It's not that he lacks value. It's that he leads with neediness, and that kills attraction before it even begins. But the men who understand framing, the men who speak from self-worth, not self-doubt, those are the ones who flip the script without ever raising their voice. Let's talk about the phrase that starts that shift. I don't know if you can handle me. On the surface, it sounds playful, even slightly arrogant. But when it's said with calm, centered energy, it does something powerful. It reframes the conversation. You're no longer the one trying to prove your value. You're subtly suggesting that you might be the one who's a bit too much for her. Too much depth, too much discipline, too much clarity, too much emotional presence for someone used to shallow games. And here's the beauty. You're not saying it as a challenge. You're saying it as a truth, a quiet signal that not everyone gets access to your world. That beneath the calm surface, there's complexity, there's strength, there's something not everyone can hold. And that message is intoxicating, not because it flatters her, but because it activates her curiosity. When delivered right, this phrase forces a question in her mind. Wait, what's underneath that confidence? It's not a line. It's an invitation into something deeper. And that's where attraction thrives. In the unknown, not the obvious. Now pair that with this line. I'm not that easy, said with a smile in the right moment. When she's teasing, testing, or assuming you're just another guy waiting to be won over, it flips everything. Because most men melt the moment a beautiful woman gives them a little attention. They abandon their boundaries. They rush in. They overshare. They chase. But when you calmly say, I'm not that easy, what you're really communicating is this. I have standards too. You're attractive, but so am I. Let's see if you meet my energy. This isn't arrogance. It's selective energy. It's showing her that you don't give yourself away just because someone smiled. That your presence is something to earn, not assume. And when you hold that frame, lighthearted but firm, it sends a message for you women here. This man values himself. And when a man walks through the world with that quiet certainty, with that frame of being chosen, not chasing, he becomes a rare one, the man who doesn't need to perform, the man who invites curiosity, inspires respect, and earns desire. In the next section, we'll explore how to deliver these phrases with the presence of a man who lives them, not just says them, because words are only as powerful as the energy behind them. And when your delivery aligns with your inner standard, she'll feel it before she even knows why. Now here's the truth. A phrase is only as powerful as the presence that delivers it. Let's talk about how real men speak, not just with words, but with energy, silence, and certainty. It's not just what you say that moves her, it's how you say it. The pause between your words, the stillness behind your eyes, the grounded calm in your voice. That's what she feels long before she understands why she's drawn to you. Too many men memorize words hoping they'll work like magic spells. But phrases without presence are just noise. They might get attention, but they'll never earn respect. Because women, especially women of depth, aren't listening for your vocabulary. They're listening for your vibration. They want to feel the truth behind your tone. So, what does powerful delivery look like? First, it's slow. Not lazy, not disinterested, but unrushed. A man who's grounded in himself doesn't race to fill silence. He lets his words breathe. He lets moments hang in the air because he knows that silence isn't weakness, it's tension. And tension, when controlled, creates magnetic pull. Second, your eyes. Look at her with focus, not hunger, not the look of a man trying to get something, but the calm gaze of a man who sees something valuable and takes his time to name it. That's rare. That's unforgettable. Because most men look at women like they're hunting. But a high-value man doesn't hunt. He notices, and in that noticing, he creates connection. Third, your body. Sit back. Don't lean forward. Let your posture say, I'm here, I'm open, but I'm not chasing. The way you carry your frame says more than 1,000 compliments. Are your shoulders relaxed? Are your hands still? Is your breath steady? That's what tells her you're not acting. You are. And finally, your energy. Women don't remember every word you say. They remember how they felt in your presence. Were you grounded? Or reactive? Did you make her feel seen? Or did you make her feel like a prize you were trying to win? Because a man who says, "You have a unique way about you," but says it with rushed tone, nervous laughter, or eyes darting for approval, kills the power of the words. But the man who pauses, who lets the silence stretch for a beat, who looks into her and speaks with steady breath, that man becomes a story she tells her friends about later. Not because of what he said, but because he meant it, and because he didn't need anything back. Real masculine energy doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't beg for validation. It speaks few words and makes them matter. And when your delivery is calm, centered, and fully in the moment, even the simplest phrase becomes unforgettable. Because in a world where most men speak to impress, you speak to express. In a world of fast talkers, you become the slow burn. And that burn is what lingers. In the next section, we'll explore what makes a woman emotionally bond to a man long after he's gone. Not from charm, not from looks, but because in his presence, she felt one thing she didn't expect. I was seen. Because when your delivery becomes an extension of your values, something deeper happens. You don't just impress her, you leave an emotional imprint that lingers long after the conversation ends. There are men she forgets, and then there are men she remembers without knowing why. She'll forget what you wore. She'll forget what you ordered. She might even forget the jokes. But she will never forget how you made her feel about herself in that moment, when your words touched something no one else had seen. That's the emotional imprint. It's not about seduction. It's not about being smooth. It's about presence. It's about that rare moment when a man stops performing, stops posturing, and simply sees her. Not the version she shows the world, not the one with the perfect smile or perfect answer, but the real her, the woman behind the armor, the woman with fire, fear, drive, contradiction. And in that moment, she's not being judged, she's being witnessed. Let me ask you something. When was the last time someone looked into you, not past you, not through you, but into you and said, "That right there, that's what I like most about you"? That kind of moment doesn't disappear. It echoes. Because in a world obsessed with surfaces, the man who sees beneath them is dangerous in the best way. He creates an emotional mark, a fingerprint on her psyche, one that whispers, "You're more than beautiful, you're unforgettable." And that's why she remembers him. Not because he was loud, not because he was funny, not because he bragged about what he owns, but because in his stillness she felt seen. Most men will never give that experience. They're too focused on being impressive, too afraid of silence, too distracted by outcome. But you're not most men. You understand that attraction isn't built in noise. It's built in noticing, in reflection, in words that carry weight because they come from a place of calm clarity, not hunger. That's what creates emotional gravity. The truth is, most women are starving to be understood, not just admired. And when a man reflects her depth back to her, he becomes a mirror she didn't know she needed. And mirrors, real ones, are rare. That's why the phrases we've explored work so well when delivered with intention. You have a unique way about you. I like women who know what they want. That's what I like most about you. I don't know if you can handle me. I'm not that easy. These aren't magic words. They're keys. But the door they open, that depends on your presence, your stillness, your energy. Because in the end, the highest form of attraction is not when a woman looks at you and thinks you're desirable. It's when she walks away and thinks, "I felt more myself in his presence than I have in a long time." That's not game. That's not pickup. That's power. And that's how men of substance leave their mark without ever needing to raise their voice. Now, if you're ready to embody this energy, not just understand it, there's one final step. Let's bring it home. And that brings us to the real reason we're here. You're not just here to speak better. You're here to become better. Let's close this out with a reminder of what kind of man you're truly becoming. If you've made it this far, you already know you're not here to learn how to chase. You're here to remember who you are. You're here to speak with clarity, not desperation. You're here to become the kind of man who doesn't need to convince anyone, because his presence already speaks volumes. The world doesn't need more loud men. It needs more rooted ones. Men who walk with intent, who speak with weight, and who leave emotional fingerprints without ever needing to impress. Because the truth is, you don't need more words. You need more awareness. You don't need more tactics. You need more presence. Speak like a man who knows who he is. Speak less. But when you do, make it echo. And if this message stirred something in you, if something in your gut said, "This is the kind of man I want to become," then don't just walk away with insight. Walk away with intention. Because we're building something here. A space where modern men rediscover timeless strength. Where silence is respected. Where confidence is calm. And where value speaks without needing volume. If you're ready to step into that version of yourself, not the boy who seeks attention, but the man who commands respect, then this isn't the end. It's the beginning. Hit that subscribe button. Not for me, not for vanity, but because every time you tune in, you're reinforcing something deeper. That your voice matters. That your energy matters. That the world needs more men who lead from within. And when you subscribe, you're not just joining a channel. You're joining a movement. A quiet one. A powerful one. One that starts with awareness and ends with legacy. So say less. Stand tall. And speak like the kind of man she'll never forget.